In today's video, we look at an elite grandmaster player by the name of Hikaru Nakamura. And we also got a great chess opening system, the Hippopotamus Defense. And in this case, Hikaru plays against a FIDE master who makes a very common mistake against the Hippo, that being that they overpush. And they're actually the ones with the bigger targets, the least active pieces, and the more vulnerable king. Let's take a look. So we got this game here. Hikaru is playing with the black pieces. We got e4 and okay, g6 and bishop g7. I mean, this is how I start off my games. And then from here, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I like the move of d6 on move 3. This is what I play every single time. However, Hikaru seems to like a double fianchetto, right, with b6 and bishop b7. And okay, from this point, he continues with e6, tucking that first knight, and then, d6 followed by tucking the second. The nice thing about the Hippo is that we're really trying to reach a setup, right? I do think that the move order matters, but there's multiple ways to get there. I mean, I've seen elite grandmaster players go with the double fianchetto, like you just saw. I've seen, e6 be played on move 1 with the French. I've seen b6, right? I've seen a lot of different things. The perk, there's a lot of different move orders to get into it. Some of them have advantages over others, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to get our setup, and that's exactly what Hikaru is doing here. Now, okay, bishop d2 is played. Now, in this game, the pawn on d4 wasn't necessarily a focus, right? It's not like Hikaru won this pawn right away or anything like that. But what I will say is that when you look at this position, you got to be mindful that this is a big target, okay? Once we get our Hippo set up, and once we're really getting close to it, we got to start asking ourselves the question, which one of these two pawns is weaker, right? And in this case, I say d4 is the much bigger target because e4 is defended by 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3. We're only attacking it with 1 piece, right? Which in this case doesn't amount to 3 much at all. I mean, we'd have to have 3 more attackers to be able to win the pawn. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we could attack that pawn all we want. White's probably not going to flinch. They don't need to, that's for sure. The pawn on d4, though, we do have 1 attacker. That's it. But they also only have 1 defender, and they have a bishop stack. Okay, a bishop stack means that White's a long way away from ever breaking open this file. And on top of that, bishops don't move like rooks, as we know. So, these bishops are not obviously defending that pawn. So this is a pawn that we want to keep an eye out for. Okay. Now, here we have this move of h6 from Hikaru. And after rook c1, we have g5. Notice this is actually looking to potentially look at g4 as an option, kicking the lone defender of that pawn on d4, right? Of course, white here stops this with the move of h3, and we have knight g6. This is one of my favorite ideas in the Hippo. It's a nice way to not break open the game right away, not commit to anything crazy, but just make some space on one side of the board, right? In some instances, we have b5, which, by the way, can't happen in this game because of that pawn on c4, followed by knight b6, just making some space. But in this game, we have g5 and knight g6, right? These are both great ideas that you can use or not use depending on white's setup. But again, I mean, it's just a nice way to improve this knight, give this queen some breathing room if it needs it, attack some dark squares, right? Help prepare e5 potentially. White continues with the move of b4 in the game, but I do want to mention, okay, this might seem a little bit scary in this instance because white has the move of e5 attacking our knight. And okay, I mean, we take this pawn. White can double up our pawn structure, but it turns out that these pawns are pretty solid. And honestly, after a move like d takes e5, I mean, this pawn is a huge target, and our bishops, right, are that much more active. I mean, okay, this bishop's attacking a knight directly, which is defending the pawn on e5, and this bishop, its scope isn't that long, right? It's not looking to the end of the board, but it is attacking a very vulnerable pawn on e5, very advanced, especially at move 14 in this game, with no pawns defending it. So, I mean, what could we do here? We could take this knight right away. We could even play a move like knight c5. This is the stockfish recommendation, looking to drop this knight into d3. By the way, if you've noticed that my voice is a little bit off, I apologize. I'm a little bit sick at the moment, but okay, we're looking at knight d3, trying to attack both of these rooks. Okay, that's obviously not how a knight moves. d3, not d4. Thank you, Solomon. Looking to attack both of those guys. So, okay, I mean, if white stops this with a move like rook e3, we castle kingside. Right, we can do that. We can castle kingside here. e5 still a big old target. Queen e2 at any point, we can just snatch that knight off. Notice how after castling, the rook also gets involved. And okay, if white takes back, we capture. And I mean, if queen takes, we got knight d3 attacking a ton of different stuff, including the pawn on e5. And if g takes, we kind of just do the same thing, right? Very strong minor piece attacking the rook, the pawn on b2, the pawn on e5. This is just not looking good for white. Case closed. So we got this move, knight g6. White was wise to not play the move e5, but instead plays b4, as I mentioned. And okay, now we have the move of a6. Not the best move from Hikaru. I mean, you know, just probably just putting some attention towards that side of the board. I'm not sure this is really necessary, but okay, I mean, we have White play the move of knight a4, and we now have castling kingside. White continues to push with c5. Up to this point, White is actually playing pretty okay. They're not winning or anything like that, but at this point, White is doing just fine. But of course, from Hikaru, we got d takes pawn. We take again. And now we got to ask ourselves a question. What's the biggest target for black to attack in this position, right? What's the weakest piece or pawn? The answer is that this pawn is pretty advanced, right? And it's only defended by 2 pieces. On top of that, let's also look at the fact that c6 is a threat. I mean, we don't want to get forked. So we see this move of bishop c6, stopping the fork and also attacking one of, the 2 pieces defending that pawn on c5. Okay, we have bishop e3, White continuing to, try to put more attention there. And what you see here is that White pushed, and they were doing good for a while, but now the position's kind of opening up a little bit. I mean, this bishop truly does see to the end of the board, okay, the very corner, can't see much further than that. And this bishop here is also very active, putting pressure on the center, putting pressure on this knight, and it's kind of untouchable. So we now have this move of knight d e5. This is the best move in the position, supported by a knight, double attacking this bishop on d3, and if White takes, which they do in the game, then okay, we take back with the knight. Again, we're reinstating the threat of attacking this bishop, and notice if this bishop decides to run away somewhere, for example, like f1, should we take the queen or should we take the knight? Well, if we take the knight, the queen just captures back. So why not take the queen first and then take the knight, right? Because obviously rooks don't move like that. So now we're just up a piece. Black is simply winning this. So after knight takes e5, White plays the move of bishop c2. This may seem odd, but the whole purpose of it is that if Black takes, White is still defending this minor piece. Okay. But okay, now we just see a nice little improving move from Hikaru, getting that rook on the d file. We now have knight c4, attacking that dark squared bishop. And, a sign of a great player is continuing to make threats. Not cheap threats, but good threats that help them improve their position as well. What I consider a cheap threat is a threat where I make a threat, they stop it, my position didn't get better at all by making that threat, right? It was kind of just a cheapo, like hope chess, right? We've all heard of that, hope chess. And if you haven't, it's basically, okay, well, I'm going to play this move and they don't have to take my rook. And, by putting my rook there, it doesn't do anything at all, but hopefully they take it. And then the second they don't, you're like, why is my rook there, right? That's hope chess, right? But this is one of those things where we are making a threat. I'm about to go over what it is, but if White stops it, okay, we just improved our knight, right? That's the perfect scenario. A great player continues making threats, but it's good threats, whereas if the opponent defends them, our position's still improved, okay? The other side of it is that someone that's playing hope chess the whole game is kind of just putting bait out there, and when the opponent doesn't take it, the person that put the bait out kind of just made their position worse, if not the same, right? So, okay, we have that move of knight c4. Here's the threat. Let's say White plays something like bishop e3, okay? Well, first off, we can just take that guy, okay? Take that rook. If the rook captures back, thank you for the minor piece, and if the bishop captures back, we're going to take that bishop anyways, and now we have a pin. Right, so there's a lot of different things that White needs to factor in here. This bishop's very active. The knight's attacking. The bishop on e3. We're attacking the rook on d1. There's a lot of stuff going on. White here just drops the bishop back. Right, and okay, we have rook a b8 now. I mean, Black now has rooks on both of the only open files in this game. White captures back. Okay, we take back with our rook. Rook d1. We now have a trade. And now we have bishop e5. Does this make a threat? No. But does it improve the bishop? Of course, right? This is a really, a nice bishop that's kind of limiting the scope of that bishop on f2. I mean, before this, White could think about something like bishop g3 as an example. But now that we played the move after rook takes, right, of bishop e5, this bishop can't go there. It can't go there because the knight. It can't go there because the bishop. The only square it could go is e1, which, Stockfish seems to like for White. That said, even though it's the top move at the moment, or one of the top moves as I look at it, Black still has the edge here. Okay, so this is one of those improving moves, improving your pieces while stopping your opponent from improving theirs, right? King f1 is played. We improve the second bishop. Boom. I mean, we're looking directly at the opponent's king. And after king e1, we have knight b2. And okay, after knight takes, I was assuming here, I mean, black would just, you know, take the knight and call it a game. But is there a better move here for black than taking that knight, right? When you see a good move, look for a better one. That's a knight, and we can take it. What's the better move? Bishop c3. Game over. Stunning, right? I mean, this move of knight b2 is just a great move at the end of the day. I mean, we are threatening knight d3 with check, you know, forking those guys. If the king steps into the line of fire, then we get discovery type stuff. And if white takes, which is very, I mean, that's very playable, right? I mean, white here is trying to trade down. They're trying to get into an endgame that's not super crazy because black is the one with the more active pieces. But Hikaru goes, you know what? I don't want to take that knight. I'd rather just play bishop c3, and the king has absolutely nowhere to go. Nothing to take the bishop, nothing to block. That's a ball game. Okay, so what are some takeaways from this, right? I would say, okay, in general, if white pushes their pawns like crazy in the center, it might seem scary, but at the end of the day, one of your bishops is always going to improve, right? If white pushes with d5, one of our bishops just improved, right? If they push with e5, the other bishop just improved. Obviously, it doesn't move like that. It moves in a diagonal fashion, but you get the point, right? One of the bishops is going to improve, and the other bishop, right? This just got more scope. The other bishop is going to be looking directly at the opponent's pawn, right? So in a sense, both of them are kind of more activated, which is kind of interesting. But okay, I mean, you know, pushing in the center isn't always the greatest idea, and yeah, I mean, a6 probably a little unnecessary, but overall, I mean, a great game from Hikaru. You know, I think especially bishop c6 and knight e5. I mean, this is just active chess, right? Put that knight dead in the center. We have two bishops that are very well placed. This knight is supporting the knight. It's looking at f4 and h4, and the queen's looking here. We put the rooks on the open files. This is what you want in the hippo. You want to get a solid position, keep slowly making improvements, and the second that your opponent starts breaking the game open, your pieces are surprisingly, to the opponent's knowledge, in a great place. Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so that you don't miss out on anything coming our way. And on top of that, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of November in 2023. Big love to y'all. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon member, you can click on a link down in the description below, and in that, you will see all the benefits, including one in which we recently added, which is actually a once-a-month session with me, in which case we go over patrons' games. I'll see you all in the next one.